Hey y'all, it's Auntie Amber from the Clinical Cookout. Just letting y'all know we still on break. We're releasing content, but our second season starts on January 6th, 2023. Y'all be ready. We coming in hot with some new hot sauces. We're going to be adding some grill sessions. Let us know if y'all want to get grilled on the cookout. We also going to be coming with some live episodes, so y'all be ready. Hope to see y'all then. In the meantime, enjoy Flashback Friday. So, what do y'all think about this whole idea of parents like wanting their kids to struggle because they struggled? Like not wanting to provide them with certain things or just hand them certain things because they had to earn it themselves as a child and they think their kids have to earn it too.
I'm halfway not supportive on the struggling because you struggled. I do enjoy kids earning things. So like one thing I do, right? My son right now, since I ain't got no babysitter over the summer, he comes to work with me. And so since he comes to work with me in the mornings, my boss gives him little odd jobs to do. Like he'll let him sweep the porch, feed the dog, take out the trash, and at the end of the week he gave him a paycheck. And so like Isaac was like real amped, like learning like this how I make my money. This how you make money. And so like I agree with teaching them to fish and not just providing all the fish, but not synonymous with struggle.
Well, you know what? You know where this comes from though? Is because my husband is one of those and I'm not. So, toys. Something very simple. Buying the kids toys. If we go to the store, they don't get a toy every time we go to the store. But if I'm in a good mood, I'm like, yeah, let's go to the toy section. We come back with toys. He's like, why do they always get toys? Like, they eat McDonald's every now and then, and they get toys, and I didn't get to do that as a kid. Why do they get to do that? And I'm like, so I can't, we have the luxury of providing certain things to our kids that your parents didn't have the luxury to do at the time. So why not?
And see, I'm right in the middle too. I know where Sugar's coming from. You don't want kids to be entitled. You don't want to raise entitled kids where they think that everything is theirs, the world is at their fingertips, and they don't have to do anything at all to earn anything. You don't want that. But I think when a lot of people say the whole my kids need to struggle just like I did. My problem with that is the type of struggles they're talking about. Like this was on Facebook at one point. Or you know what? Something simple. You always hear people say, like if a kid say, yo, can I get a ride to this place or get a ride to school? They like, I use my 2 feet. But I got a car, so why am I gonna make you walk just because I had to walk?
Exactly.
That's the dumbest thing in the world. Like that's some trauma-informed responses to something. So that I don't agree with. And I think some people mean that when they say that. Like, no, you going to struggle. I had to walk, you going to walk. I had to do this. Well, the idea is for each generation to do better and therefore provide better. So if the idea is for each, I didn't have to walk. So I'm not about to make my kids walk. So it doesn't make sense to me the way some people's idea of that is formed. Like struggle is legit struggle. Like I'm not doing anything extra for you other than putting clothes on your back and food on the table, which means no, we're not going to McDonald's because you ain't got McDonald's money. But you do. I mean, and you can spend your money on me too. Like I also don't like the idea of parents who are like, well, I'm eating steak and shrimp, but you getting chicken fingers. Why? My kids can't have a better palate than that. Like they can't have what I'm eating. That doesn't make sense to me.
And you know what? It's a little bit different when you can't afford to give steak and shrimp to all your kids when you're out eating because that's kind of expensive. But if you got it and that's what you're eating, why can't your kids get it too?
And that's my point. If you got it, like we know everybody is not in the same economic place, and that's understandable. But if you got it, your kids should not see you living in luxury and they have to struggle because you want to teach them some type of lesson. That doesn't make sense.
Maybe because these kids wasteful.
I mean, but we're all wasteful at some point. See, mine aren't. So see, that's where mine gonna eat. If I get to that stuff, they gonna eat. But I mean, everybody's wasteful to an extent. As adults, we waste things too sometimes. We don't always use everything to the fullest. So, I mean, that's just the mindset that it's only kids who are wasteful. I know a lot of adults who are wasteful as well.
But maybe I'm talking about like maybe it's wasteful with things that they have. Like maybe the other perspective is, okay, I'm indulging you. Because there is a such thing as overindulgence and not making somebody earn things. So my question is, are they saying your kids need to earn things, or they legit want them to struggle through life?
People think that strength is produced through struggle. That's the whole idea. They think you cannot be a strong, determined type of person. You can't grow up to be that type of adult if you've never had to struggle at all. And they mean struggle. They don't mean just making you earn things. I think some people who say it literally mean you're going to be weak if I don't let you go through this.
Y'all waiting on me?
Yeah, hop in. You ain't said that.
That was a long pause.
Here's the thing, and this is being totally honest with y'all. Even though I work with children, I try to be very mindful on commenting on things when I don't have children. And that's just me being self-aware of, before I make a comment, how am I understanding from their perspective when they have children and I don't.
Right.
But I will provide an example of someone who was not a minority, who has 7 to 8 kids. And I was just one of those adopted kids that they put in their families or considered family, and they knew my lifestyle and they knew how I grew up, but their children did not grow up that way. And I remember he's like, I wish my kids had a little bit of struggle. He said, because they do not understand what it's like to not have no electrical. They don't understand what it's like to figure out ways to survive, because I've always provided that for them. They don't understand that. And so I thought that was just interesting when he said that, because I would never think that he would say that, because they are upper class individuals, upper class families. So I didn't even think a parent would even want that to happen when they're at that level. But from their perspective, it's no, I've always handed these kids everything, and now they don't understand the real world things that happens around them because they don't have to experience that. So what happens when something does come up, and what are they going to do? They're going to look for me to take care of it versus trying to figure it out. So now that doesn't mean I'm agreeing either way. That's just an example of someone else of a different culture who had that perspective.
Ashton Kutcher and his wife does that too. They do that too.
A lot of celebrities do that. A lot more celebrities than people think do that. They force their kids to struggle a little bit. But I 2 comments just on the first thing, Keish. You not having kids, I used to be that person that be like, you ain't got kids, so you can't say nothing. I will admit that used to be me. Now I'm like, I have an aunt who has never had kids, but she's parented and mothered all of us. So for me, don't ever feel like, and you work with kids, like you work with kids from the perspective of knowing children inside and out through the work you've done in school and in your field. So don't ever feel like because you don't have kids of your own, it's too many aunties and cousins and sisters who have parented kids that weren't there.
Right.
No, hold on. There's a disclaimer with that too, though, because I was a bomb mother before I had kids. I wasn't gonna let my kids do this. I wasn't gonna let them do that. True. I had all the judgment and none of the experience. True. Not saying that's you, but I'm saying there is a thin line.
It's a line.
Yeah. I have a nephew. So I'm like my sister would say, I'm like his second mom. I love that boy to the death of me. And so I do parent him kind of like a mom, even though I didn't birth him, but I also try to be just aware of, me just speaking out of turn,
right.
Right. So
and you're right, Sheila. It's a line for sure.
Well, I'm guilty of the giving my kids things and not making them earn it all the time. Sometimes they do have to earn it. Like we do a whole allowance thing, even for my 3-year-old. You have to do some work to get something that's a privilege. But like growing up, I just remember wanting things that were like small. Like I want a burger from McDonald's. Like I know my mom had $2 to get me a burger, but it was just no. Well, why? No. I'm like, come on. So when my kids ask for stuff, and it's not just McDonald's, it could be anything really. But when my kids ask for stuff, I think about that because I'm like, I always wanted to know why would my mom just say no for no reason? In my mind, it was just for no reason because you wouldn't explain to me why there was no. So if my kids ask for something and I do say no, then I'm like, no, not right now because of this reason. We got the money, but this is the reason why. And I know some people don't agree with explaining things to their kids, but that's just how I do it.
I was
I do
just about
too.
to say that. You have to explain things to kids. People treat kids like they are not human beings. This is still a human being, just at a different developmental level than an adult. They deserve apologies. They deserve explanations. They deserve that stuff. Like people often wonder. My kids talk a lot, and they're smart. They're confident. Like what? I let them be human. I let them have a voice. Like you can't take away their voice and then expect them to speak up. That's not how it works. But swinging back to what Keith said, I just want to make a quick comment. The guy you said was, kind of upper class, different culture, and said, my kids have never had to go without lights and things like that. Lights are a basic necessity. Like I could see extra stuff like McDonald's, but I'm sorry, I don't want my kids to go without lights and water and heat and AC. Like that,
Yeah.
those are the things. Like we talk about basic necessities. You want your kids to know what it's like to be in the dark and have candles burning like that? Doesn't make sense to me. Now, if you extras like McDonald's or I want the brand new pair of Jordans, I get that. I get the parents who like, nah, I'm gonna get you these Walmart sneakers. You gonna earn them Jordans. I get that, but not the basic necessities. Like, bruh, lights are
Right.
basic. I don't want my lights shut off, so why do I want my kids to go through lights being shut off?
And then think about like the reason why the lights were shut off. That parent was working super hard to try to keep the lights on, try to keep food on the table because they didn't have the opportunity at the time to get a better job or to have a career. But now we're talking generational wealth. We're trying to set our kids up to where they have a career or they have opportunities to get a job and they can pay for their life. They can pay for their basic necessities. So just like my life, for example, I mean, I'm one of the first to go to college and to finish. And so that's automatically setting my kids up, not automatically, but that's setting them up for opportunities to where if I need to pay for them to go to school or pay for them to get into some kind of trade or something like that, they have that privilege.
Yeah.
So I just, the circumstances at the time that these parents were struggling to keep the lights on and all that, it's completely different than now. And if we're trying to set our kids up for success, we want to show them how to pay the light bill, but not necessarily let it go to where they don't have lights.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's also like to bring mental health into it. Amber, you said something interesting. Like when your kids would ask for McDonald's, you think back to when your mother would say no with no real valid reason. So that is speaking to us, really that inner child part of us that speaks to us and tells us, I don't want somebody else to feel this. Some people go the I don't want them to feel this, and other people are like, I felt it, so what's wrong with them feeling it? So it's two sides. You can go either way based off how you view it. Like my dad bought my one son a drum set, and he said, I bought him that drum set because that was the only thing I wanted as a kid, and my mother couldn't afford it. So if he want to play drums, I want to make sure he can play drums. So like it all just depends on how you take it. Because he could have said, I ain't have it. You tell him to use the pots and pans like I did. He'll make it. But he didn't say that. It was, no, I know how that feels to want that.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
if you mention generational wealth, you also have to kind of go into the reasoning behind some of people's trauma response. And what a trauma response is your automatic response based on something that happened to you that still gives you negative symptoms to today.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are just going off of a trauma response when they say, no, I ain't have this or I ain't have that. Some people are actually scared to be poor again from giving people who don't know how to maintain everything before they earn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn, you just made me feel bad. Maybe I need to change it up a little bit.
No. This is just it. If your kids are respectful, this is how I measure it. If your kids are respectful, they know how to, show confidence, speak up for themselves, and they are well adjusted, then you're doing fine. No matter what route you're taking, you're probably doing fine. But the problem comes into play. Some well-adjusted kids that you think are well-adjusted and behave well, that's not being well-adjusted. That's them being fearful of messing up. So depending on how you discipline, your kids aren't well-behaved. They're scared. They're scared to make a mistake. They're scared to mess up. They're scared to say anything out of turn or say anything to an adult to defend themselves because they know it's going to be punishment or discipline behind that. So you have to figure out, how do I measure if my kids are truly well adjusted or they're just living life in fear?
Yeah.
I like that. because that is something that I've been taught in training when we work with children. It's not that, because a lot of parents get upset, like, well, why would they lie? And I often ask parents, well, why do you think they would lie? How are you going to respond if they told you the truth? And so reactions are very, very important when it comes to children making mistakes, because they're going to. The question is, how do you respond to that? And depending on your response is how your children is going to determine whether this is a safe space or not to be open with you.